Well, it's day 4 of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Chilly weather there, no less. But for Singapore's National Development Minister Desmond Lee, it was a day of heated discussions about the multi-trillion-dollar care economy and building sustainable and socially resilient cities. Mr. Lee spoke with CNA as well. That's where he said that there is cautious optimism for the year and beyond, but also concern over the state of the economy. Heidi Ng joins us live now. She's in Davos. Heidi, what sort of concerns are Mr. Lee referring to?
Yeah, definitely. So plenty of concerns that the world is facing right now, plenty of crisis. So firstly, there's inflation that's affecting everybody, rising cost of living. And then there's the high interest rate environment that's hurting businesses. There are supply chain issues as well as the remaining uncertainty over China's reopening. And of course, that global fallout from the war in Ukraine. But take a listen to what Mr. Lee says is one of his key takeaways from this meeting.
One key issue that was discussed was resilience. Obviously, from the COVID crisis, a lot of people are thinking about what they've gone through, from just in time to just in case. How do you invest in resilience without becoming uncompetitive? How do you get the private sector to invest in infrastructure, especially if, as a country, they may not necessarily have the capital to do all of these things? A lot of discussions about how the government and the private sector should collaborate better, including with NGOs, to build up resilience against the next big shock.
Heidi, Singapore is, of course, a small country compared with many of the nations represented there in Davos. What's Singapore's role, though, on the global stage like this at a forum of this nature?
So it's Mr. Lee's first outing here at this World Economic Forum, and he says it's important for Singapore to be here regardless of its size, and that's because we want to know what other people, what other countries out there, what their perception of Singapore is, and we also want to contribute to the global stage to share our ideas and our experiences. But take a listen to what else he says Singapore can bring to the table.
We want to know their perception of Singapore, and we want to be a useful part of that global community, share our ideas, share our experiences, but in turn, this is also a wonderful place for us to learn from many people around the world.
And Mr. Lee will also be attending a slew of WTO, that's the World Trade Organization meetings, for the rest of the meeting. Just 1.5 days left to go here. And, he'll be discussing issues on coming together to launch a coalition on trade and climate change. And there are also meetings to look at WTO reforms that are possible, as well as on custom duties for digital products.
Heidi, thank you very much for that update, and do stay warm there in Davos. Heidi Ng there reporting live for us for the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. A closer look now at what the National Development Minister said today at the World Economic Forum. Desmond Lee spoke at a panel on an $11 trillion global care economy, saying that early childhood education is a critical pillar in bridging the inequality gap in Singapore. And he said that that's why the Republic invests $1.8 billion every year in preschool education and makes it affordable for lower-income households.
First, it helps women enter the workforce if they wish and give them caregiver respite. Second, it develops children to their fullest potential at an early age. Good start in life. Third, it helps us tackle stubborn inequalities. And we see a clear difference between children from lower-income households and children from more well-endowed households. And early childhood education is one of many interventions that we need to undertake holistically.
Mr. Lee also explained how the government works with partners, including public hospitals, social enterprises, as well as NGOs, to engage with the lowest income families, as well as to help level the playing field. He touched on the Community Link program. That's for families living in rental housing.
With consent, we get the data from across government, build a thorough picture of the family's complexities, work with each and every one of these 15,000 families to work out a customized roadmap for each family. For the first time, listening to the family instead of imposing government conditions upon them or social work conditions upon them, and then using that orchestrated system to help marshal government programs from the VWOs, from faith organizations, to help push them to their aspirations.
Mr. Lee also spoke during a panel on sustainable urban living. The National Development Minister pointed out the balancing act needed for cities of the future to be environmentally sustainable and socially resilient. He said Singapore does that by integrating nature into the city to balance human needs and conservation.
For us, our green gems are in the heart of the city. We have core biodiverse areas with some primary rainforest. These are primordial rainforests. And they are surrounded by us, by our housing, by our roads. And while people may want to have aspirations where they live, we need to strike a balance and conserve these core nature areas and ensure that flora can disperse and fauna can connect even within a city as dense and intense as ours.
But Mr. Lee also pointed out that Singapore is one of the most ethnically and religious diverse societies in the world, and making sure that diversity translates into neighbourhoods does require some intense and seemingly controversial policies. That includes how land is managed.
Some parts of Singapore are looking like New York, like London, very wealthy people in very exclusive gated communities, high-rise luxury condominiums. So government must intervene. We have used a lot of resources to take land in those very wealthy areas, and I build public housing there, including putting homes for the poorest people in our city.